Good morning, upcoming fourth graders. I'm here with your Harry Potter Read Aloud. I promised myself that I would not let this slide anymore. It is shearing day on the farm, which means that all of these llamas need to get their hair cut today. And that's why they are all locked in the barn. So everybody is here with me. This is one of the baby llamas named Tambourine. This one is Queenie, and she's also very curious. This is Delight again, trying to get in my face. I'm going to read about 15 minutes of the book, you guys, and then I'm going to have to go so I can start shearing these guys. I'm going to be too tired tonight, I know it already, get out of here, to read to you tonight, but definitely tomorrow morning. I've got nothing on the books just so that I can rest and recover today because it's going to be hot. I'm already sweating. Chapter 17, The Cat, the Rat, and the Dog. Harry's mind had gone blank with shock. The three of them stood transfixed with horror underneath the invisibility cloak. The very last rays of the setting sun were casting a bloody light over the long, shadowed grounds. Then, behind them, they heard a wild howling. Hagrid, Harry muttered. Without thinking about what he was doing, he made to turn back, but both Ron and Hermione seized his arms. "We can't," said Ron, who was paper white. He'll be in worse trouble if they know that we've been to see him. Hermione's breathing was shallow and uneven. How could they? She choked. How could they? "Come on," said Ron, whose teeth seemed to be chattering. They set off backwards towards the castle, walking slowly to keep themselves hidden underneath the cloak. Light was fading fast now. By the time they reached the open ground, darkness was settling like a spell around them. "Scabbers, keep still," Ron hissed, clamping his hand over his chest. The rat was wriggling madly. Ron came to a sudden halt, trying to force Scabbers deeper into his pocket. "What's the matter with you, you stupid rat? Stay still! Ouch! He bit me!" "Ron, be quiet," Hermione whispered urgently. "Fudge will be out here in any minute. He won't stay put." Scabbers was plainly terrified. He was writhing with all his might, trying to break free of Ron's grip. "What's the matter with him?" But Harry had just seen, slinking towards them, his body low to the ground, wide yellow eyes glinting eerily in the darkness. Do you remember who this might be? Crookshanks. Whether he could see them or was following the sound of Scabbers' squeaks, Harry couldn't tell. "Crookshanks!" Hermione moaned. "No, go away, Crookshanks, go away!" But the cat was getting nearer. "Scabbers, no!" Too late. The rat had slipped between Ron's clutched fingers, hitting the ground and scampering away. In one bound, Crookshanks sprang after him, and before Harry or Hermione could stop him, Ron had thrown the invisibility cloak off himself and pelted away in the darkness. "Ron!" Hermione screamed. She and Harry looked at each other, then followed at a sprint. It was impossible to run full out under the cloak. They pulled it off, and it streamed behind them like a banner. As they hurtled after Ron, they could hear his feet thundering along ahead and his shouts at Crookshanks. "Get away from him! Get away from Scabbers! Come here!" There was a loud thud. "Gotcha! Get off, you stinking cat!" Harry and Hermione almost fell over Ron. They skidded to a stop right in front of him. He was sprawled on the ground, but Scabbers was back inside of his pocket. He had both hands held tight over the quivering lump. "Ron, come back under the cloak," Hermione panted. "Dumbledore, the minister, they'll be coming back in a minute." But before they could cover themselves again, before they could even catch their breath, they heard the soft pounding of gigantic paws. Something was bounding towards them out of the dark. An enormous, pale-eyed, jet-black dog, much like the Grim. Isn't that scary? What do you think? There's another baby over here listening to the story, but He's a little nervous to come in the camera, and now he's walking away. What do you think, Queenie? Is that a little scary? Harry reached for his wand, but too late. The dog had made an enormous leap, and its front paws hit him on the chest. He kneeled over backwards in a whirl of hair. He felt its hot breath and saw inch-long teeth. But the force of its leap had carried it too far. It rolled off of him, dazed, feeling as though his ribs were broken. Harry tried to stand up. He could hear it growling as it skidded around for a new attack. Ron was on his feet. The dog sprang backwards towards them. He pushed Harry aside, and the dog's jaws fastened instead around Ron's outstretched arms. Harry lunged at it, but it seized a handful of the big brute's hair. But it was dragging Ron away easily, as if Ron were just a rag doll. Then, out of nowhere, something hit Harry so hard across the face, he was knocked off his feet again. He heard Hermione shriek with pain and fall too. Harry groped for his wand, blinking blood out of his eyes. He'd been hit in the head, and now he's bleeding, and there's blood in his eyes. "Lumos," he whispered. The wand light showed him the trunk of a very thick tree. Do you know what tree they're under? I'm going to give you a hint. It's from the Chamber of Secrets, the second book. They had chased Scabbers into the shadow of the Whomping Willow, and its branches were creaking as though in a high wind, whipping backwards and forwards to stop them from going near. And there, at the base of the trunk, was the dog, dragging Ron backwards into a large gap in the roots. Ron was fighting furiously, but his head and torso were slipping out of sight. "Ron!" Harry shouted, trying to follow, but a heavy branch whipped lethally through the air, and he was forced to go backwards again. All they could see now was one of Ron's legs, which he had hooked around a root in order to stop the dog from pulling him further underground. Then a horrible crack cut the air like a gunshot. Ron's leg had broken, and the next second his foot had vanished from sight. "Harry, we've got to go get help!" Hermione cried. She was bleeding too. The willow had cut her across the shoulder. "No, that thing's big enough to eat him! We haven't got time! We're never going to get through without help!" Another branch whipped down at them. Twigs clenched like knuckles. "If that dog can get in, we can get in." So they're going in through a hole at the base of the trunk, in case that wasn't clear. "If that dog can get in, we can get in," Harry panted, darting here and there, trying to find a way through the vicious, swishing branches. But he couldn't get an inch nearer to the tree roots without being in range of the tree's blows. "Oh, help! Help!" Hermione whispered frantically, dancing uncertainly on the spot. "Please!" Crookshanks darted forwards. He slithered between the battering branches like a snake and placed his front paws upon a knot in the trunk, like a little twisted area on the trunk. Abruptly, as though the tree had been turned to stone, it stopped moving. Not a leaf twitched or shook. "Crookshanks!" Hermione whispered uncertainly. She now grasped Harry's arm painfully hard. How did he know?" "He's friends with that dog," said Harry grimly. "I've seen them together. Come on, and keep your wand out." They covered the distance to the trunk in seconds, but before they had reached the gap in the roots, Crookshanks had slid in it. With a flick of his bottle-brush tail, Harry went next. He crawled forwards head first and slid down an earthy slope to the bottom of a very low tunnel. Crookshanks was a little ways along, his eyes flashing in the light from Harry's wand. Seconds later, Hermione slithered down the hole beside him. "Where's Ron?" she whispered in a terrified voice. "This way," said Harry, setting off, bent backwards after Crookshanks. "Where does this tunnel come out?" Hermione asked breathlessly from behind him. "I don't know. It's marked on the Marauder's map, but Fred and George said no one's ever gotten into it. It goes off the edge of the map, but it looks like it ends up in Hogsmeade. Remember the little village? Do you remember a really creepy place that's in Hogsmeade?" They moved as fast as they could, bent almost double ahead of them. Crookshanks' tail bobbed in and out of view. On and on went the passage. It felt, at least, as long as the one to Honeyduke's. All Harry could think of was Ron and what that enormous dog might be doing to him. He was drawing breath in sharp, painful gasps, running at a crouch. And then the tunnel began to rise. Moments later it twisted and Crookshanks had gone. Instead, Harry could see a patch of dim light through its small opening. He and Hermione paused, gasping for breath, edging forwards, both raising their wands to see what lay beyond. It was a room, a very disordered, dusty room. Paper was peeling from the walls. There were stains all over the floor. Every piece of furniture was broken, as though somebody had smashed it. The windows were all boarded up. Harry glanced at Hermione, who looked very frightened, but nodded. Harry pulled himself out of the hole, staring around. The room was deserted, but a door to the right stood open, leading to a shadowy hallway. Hermione suddenly grabbed Harry's arm again. Her wide eyes were traveling around the boarded windows. "Harry," she whispered, I think we're in the Shrieking Shack. And that's where I'm going to stop. Remember, it's the most haunted building in all of London. And we're going to find out why it's haunted and what's going on. Okay, have a great day. I'm going to start shearing. Try to stop sweating. Probably not.